morning. Hope you're all doing well today. We're super excited. Day 3. Day 1 was phenomenal. Day 2 amazing. But day 3 is going to be epic, right? And we're talking about the richer woman, her money, and her lover. And we have men with us here today. Yes, so it's not just a woman's thing. So if you have a brother, a fiance, a boyfriend, whoever it is, as long as it's not a sugar daddy, ask you to come and join and watch as well. Let all your friends come on board. It's going to be impactful. So our first panel is focusing on relationships and family and finances. And so I'm going to read the profile or say the profile of our speakers. So we have Mr. Toyosi and Mrs. Ayoyinka Abolari who are joining us on YouTube. Ayoyinka Abolari graduated from McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario with a BA Honours in Communications Studies. She's also married to Mr. Abolari. Toyosi is an accomplished entrepreneur who is passionate about Africa's growth trajectory. He began his career working with AIESEC as a young student before joining the founding team of Ask an Expert in 2016. Please make sure you download our brochure. All our speakers' profiles are there. I'm not going to be able to read every single thing. I mean, these people are accomplished people, so please download the brochure. So I'm going to go on to introduce our next guests, Mr. and Mrs. Wole Olushola. They're in the studio at the moment. Mrs. Olalade is a certified marriage coach and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. Please, you forgive me. I'm trying to blow funny and speak at the same time, so forgive me if I make mistakes. She's passionate about building purposeful families with an undying legacy. She has a vision to reignite the passion, purpose, and romance of your marriage as she works alongside her husband at the Exquisite Marriage Company. Mr. Olushola is a life transformation coach, certified in neuro-linguistics programming as well, cognitive behavioral therapy, life coaching with a Bachelor of Arts degree in linguistics and Masters in Business Administration with specialization in marketing. And our other panelists are, I'm sure you all know of Gaze Baba. If you don't know the culture architect, you're on a very long thing. He's a polymath. Go and check dictionary for that. A polymath, a culture architect, and an award-winning Afrofusion artist who performs in Yoruba, English, and the West African lingo pidgin. His debut album is all over everywhere, so make sure you stream everywhere. Funto is an alumni of Covenant University, where she graduated with a second-class upper degree in accounting in 2010. Shortly after, she attained her chartered accountant certification in 2011. Initially employed as an accountant in the tech industry, and now she's a well-known mega interior designer. So, welcome to the Richer Woman Festival. Thank you for coming. It's so nice to have men in the room on stage. So thank you so much. So we're going to get right into it. Finances play a very important role in relationships. Money is a major reason why couples divorce. In our generation, social media makes it even worse. Because while you may be going through a tough season financially in your marriage, you're flooded with pictures of other couples going on lavish vacations to Maldives. A man buying several Birkin bags for his wife. It can be tough not to allow it to affect you. Many women also look down on men who may just be starting out because they want to marry an already made man. A lot of women are now also the breadwinners of their family, and it affects the family dynamics. The current global economic issues are also adding to the difficulties as well. Whether you're in the UK or Ghana and dealing with high cost of living, or Nigeria with the removal of the fuel subsidy and more, it's affecting everyone. We hope today's session will provide information, inspiration, encouragement, and hope for marriages in times like this.
Amen.
Yes. So the palm tree is a fascinating tree. It bears the biggest seed in the plant kingdom. That is the coconut. But one of its most fascinating attributes is that its ability to withstand storms. So even if a storm as strong as a hurricane comes, the palm tree, if you notice, Other trees will break, but the palm tree will never break. It just bends parallel to the ground and bounces back up and comes out stronger. And so for us, the palm tree is resilient. Our focus on this particular panel is how couples can come out stronger in this global economic difficult season the world is currently going through. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. and Mrs. Olushola. Like, congratulations on being married for almost 20 years. You're getting there's like 17 now. 20 years in this generation. We give you a round of applause. That's a great achievement in the world we live in today. Mr. Olushola, Mrs. Olushola, how did you meet him? In 30 seconds, how did you meet him and how did you know she was the one for you?
Okay, so I just gave my life to Christ. I started attending Winners Chapel. And I saw this guy come out to pray.
Yeah, you were supposed to pray.
Well, the person was going to introduce himself. He was going to come on stage.
Okay.
So the first time I saw my husband, he was a brother in Christ. And he came on stage to pray. And the whole room erupted. Like, we just prayed. Everybody was looking. I remember what he was wearing. He was wearing this black with white stripes. He was a banker, so he dressed like a banker. I went Bible school then. And I looked and everything was I was like 19. And well, I didn't know it was going to be my husband. And I just said, what just happened? I was just a new Christian. And everybody was like, we prayed. The whole place was just like, and I think that's the first time I saw him. But over the years, he became a very, close friend of mine and eventually became my husband.
I love it. Mr. Olushola, what was that one thing that made you say, this one is my wife?
I had been praying for a wife because I was doing my youth service then, and this was the year 2000. So immediately I saw her, I had this kind of witness that that's your wife. But while God saw a wife, I just saw a young girl, because as at then she was in year 1.
I was 19.
She was 19, just about in year 1 in Babcock. I had finished youth service. I was doing youth service in Central Bank. So myself and God were not on the same wavelength. So it took me 4 years to actually realize that the little girl was now a wife material. And all over those years, 2000 to 2004, that feeling never left me.
Wow.
Because I was looking for a ready-made woman. But God saw from a different perspective, and it took me 4 years to see what God had seen.
I love it. I hope men out there are taking notes. Take your time and let God, minister to you. But okay, so a lot of marriages now are going through difficulties. Some people have lost their jobs. Both spouses have lost their jobs. I've seen that all over the internet. One person. Is there any time that you faced a financial storm, a financial difficulty in your 20 years of marriage? How tough were things? How tough were things? Okay, how bad were things?
Is that to Wale or to me? Anyone? So should I go first?
Yeah, you should go.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we are here today because of our storm. These days everybody wants to hear how we sailed through our storm, and I wish at the time we're going through the storm, it was in 2008. There was a global recession just like this time, and my husband was a banker. Well, then even at the beginning of it was like 2 years into our marriage, we were living well, and life was good. And I was even sitting at home. I wasn't really doing anything.
Banker's wife now.
Yes, no. My husband just bought a new car. I had a driver. I had everything at my beck and call. I was envied in my family. My mom was like, "You made the best decision of your life." Yeah, life was good. And then this day, my husband comes into the house. Cut long story short, because I know we don't have too much time. We have a lot of panelists. It was like my whole world crashed, and I'll say in the last, let me say, 13 years thereabout, out of like 16 years of my marriage. I can say that I started recovering more like in 2019. Like 10 years gap in our marriage, I was lost because all the person I married, I couldn't find him. The money was no more there. My husband had invested millions into the stock market, took a loan, and invested all the money that we had without telling me into the stock market, because we had said we were not going to keep secrets. But this on the day in June, I can never forget. It's also June today. And he came in and he says, I need to tell you something. I said, what did I do? So he didn't do anything, but the stock market has gone south. My husband was an investment banker, so I'm like, what does that mean? And he said, I just lost millions in the stock market. When he told me the money, I grabbed him. I was like, so you have that kind of money? And, you know, and that was the beginning of a journey that's brought me here. And, you know, so if anybody's going through global recession right now, you're not the only one. It's happened to us. But like you said, the topic of us coming here is how to overcome the financial storms together. And I think
So I want to actually touch on that, because even our next, the couple online, we're actually supposed to talk about financial infidelity, which is keeping secrets from your spouse. So why didn't you tell her initially that you had invested so much in the stock market? Did you think that she'll have a problem with it, but you were hoping that was going to if it went well anyway, then you tell her? Was that any?
No, that wasn't why.
Okay.
It was, number one, it was an unplanned decision. So I was an investment banker, and suddenly an opportunity to invest in mobile shares came up, and it was a decision I had to take under 2 hours. And because I was in the banking sector, you know, I was in GT Bank before I went to BGL. So I had connections. So I had some of my own cash. And then because I was in the system, it didn't take more than 30 minutes to get a loan to invest. So there was no way I could start calling, blah, 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 that I wanted to do. So I just went ahead. And unfortunately for me, same day I took that loan and invested, the market started going south. And you know, as an investment banker, the first advice that comes is this: don't panic, don't fret. As long as your principal is still there, you understand that the market will always bounce back. But I think in my own case, it was just different. There was no bouncing back. Rather, it dug a hole. I started going under. So I worked for about 3 months as the investment gradually became eroded. And to make matters worse, when I took that loan, it was 13%. Then the market crashed, affected the whole banking sector. So they increased the interest rate to 15%. They wrote they were going to increase. Later, a month after, they wrote again they were going to increase it to 17%. After that, they stopped writing.
They just kept
So after a while, it was 23% plus 2% quarterly management fee, making 31%. Then about that time, my investment bank was having issues. So because I was a management staff, my own salary was slashed by about 35%, making life worse. So we were not really suffering. We could eat, we could pay school fees.
had a roof over your head.
Yes, the loans were being repaid. As a matter of fact, I didn't have a choice as per the payment of the loans because it was deducted from source. So, however, all the let's go and watch movie, let's go abroad,
Extra.
those ones became a mirage. But you know, something now happened. About that time, I was in charge of the prayer team of my church. And that prayer team alone at full strength had about 10,000 members. So I was praying for people, things were happening in their lives, but my own financial situation, it was as if the noose was tightening. I didn't understand it then. Then I became depressed. I didn't then I wasn't a life coach, I wasn't a therapist. I became depressed. Then gradually I started making the wrong decisions. You know, once you are depressed, your thinking faculty gradually shuts down. I started making the wrong decisions, and one day I just resigned.
Wow.
No plans, no nothing. I was paid off, but the money with which I was paid off was just about enough to pay off all the loans I took, tens of millions, and that was when the suffering now started. I had never suffered in my life because I was born with a silver spoon. But for the first time in my life, I knew what it was not to be able to pay school fees, what it was not to be able to pay house rent, what it was not to be able to put food on the table. I also knew what it was to be made fun of by friends, and for them to change your name to beggar, don't speak. You understand? So many things like that. And gradually I went into self-pity. And self-pity itself is a form of negative meditation. So anyway, to cut the long story short, things got so bad. And one day I just decided that I had enough, and just decided to end it all, take my life. But lots of things happened. Number one, I never stopped praying. I never blamed God. I knew that it was my fault. And then number two, one day she said to me that when we got married, we took a vow. That I did not take that vow as an academic exercise. I took it because I understood what I was going through. That it was, the vow said, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, that I will fulfill that vow. I will stay with you. We will weather this storm together and overcome. So that was a kind of elixir for me that encouraged me. But all the same, that night I decided to end it all. So I got up from beside her, went to the children's rooms, kissed them goodbye. But when I saw those children, I was like, I can't dump my own debris on these children and they'll be labeled for the rest of their lives as, that's the boy whose father killed himself, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to sleep. And then when I went back to bed, the next morning, Larry just called me out of the blues.
Yes.
And he said to me that I don't know what you want to do, but God said he still has a plan for your life. And to cut a long story short, that's how I started my journey back into recovery. It's taken a long time, but thank God for God, and that's why I can be here today.
Wow. Like, I'm just
so good. So you should just end
we
it.
did like 2 hours. Everybody here, but in fact, I'm about to close my laptop. Wow, that's amazing to hear, and I really hope anyone watching would see that. You've talked about how tough it was, and how it always made you suicidal, right? I hope someone out there will see that there's still hope because you're here today, right? Ololade, for many women, right? Right now, what was it that made you, because it's not as though you had a picture that things were going to change. You didn't know things were going to change for better.
I didn't.
But you decided to stay and stick to your vows. A lot of women in our generation would not do that. They would not. So what was it that made you do that? And I would also like to know, how did you protect your marriage in the midst of this storm? Because we all go through challenges in marriages, right? But how did you protect your marriage so that the storm didn't kill it, but you weathered it?
The storm tried to kill it. So there's no time to try and make it look like it was easy. As I write my book, I shed tears because it brings the reality of what I went through. The storm wasn't easy. He said it's very easy. It was hard. Because when I married my husband, it was every woman's dream. He's a very kind-hearted man. Can give his life for you. And all of a sudden, I see this man is totally broken. Sometimes I used to ask God, what am I doing here? Why don't I just leave and I want to enjoy my life. I'm an achiever. I like to talk. I like to, be in the front, and now I'm here. The person that we're going to write together is not even catching the fire. So it wasn't easy. But first thing first, my husband is a very good man. Very kind-hearted. That was one. So there was no way I was going to leave kindness for something else. Then two, God. God was my source. God taught me how to worship in pain. God taught me how to look up to him in the most difficult. I didn't know how, but for me, having a personal relationship with God was my sustenance. I don't know what else. Yes, I had good support system. I had very good people that could pray with me. I've always been, even in the storm, I and my husband, we prayed. And when they say a family that prays together stays together, truth. And as much as we live in this social media world, there's so much noise in our world. We are able to stay together even when it was hard through the connection with God.
So God helped you? I mean, kept you together, and also
Yes.
his kind-heartedness.
Yes.
And
And
that
that
about the money.
it wasn't about the yes, initially it was about the money. We were young. I was 24 when I got married. My husband was 30. We had a life we used to dream. And all of a sudden we wake up, we are praying to eat. And sometimes I remember one vivid, thing that happened that brought my children's school. We had a bill to pay, and we had exceeded the time. And the person sent, I think, a mail or something, one stinker to my husband, And I looked at the stinker. And my husband doesn't like me saying this, but in 2008, my husband's monthly salary was in millions. As in, like, a month's salary could sort out the bill. And I started crying. I'm like, what is the meaning of this? As in, I was crying.
I think God was just wrapping it all up.
Yeah.
You are now married coaches.
Yes.
You now have a ministry in marriage.
Yes.
To go through.
I believe that was also
pain.
the journey.
Yes.
Because he was a banker.
Yeah.
Was a banker. What does it have to do with marriage coaching,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I see how it
The
was
journey.
a process.
Yes.
And you were bringing out something new, birthing
Yes.
something new
Yes.
out of this.
Yes.
Amazing.
I accept it totally, because this morning when I was getting ready and I was dressing up, and I felt like the Holy Spirit was saying that, see where the journey has brought you. These days we get speaking platforms. We speak a lot of people don't want to speak their mistakes. That's what we do. We speak our mistakes. Even as we pastor, we share the things that we have failed in. So the truth of it is, people come like, oh, we went through that. It wasn't easy. I had sometimes, and I thank God for life coaching. That's why I have the balance with the scriptures. Life coaching was able to take me through that journey of healing. Because there was a lot of times I just felt, well, you put me in this state where I can no longer dream. You understand? So I needed to go through that forgiveness process so that we could move to the next level. But that pain has burst this.
Amazing. What a wonderful story. My goodness, we should have the plan was 1.5 hours. The team just shortened it for but let me not blame them today. So let me just go to the VOAs. Wow, I'm sure you're just like a lot of marriages now, right? A lot of women are at the forefront of career right now. I believe it's something that God is doing in this season, pushing women out there to the front. And I don't have time to explain why, right? But on the flip side, because of everything that's going on, a lot of women, a lot of families, maybe like the Olusholas now, the man has lost his job, or going through maybe a difficult season financially, where he's working hard but he's not able to monetize it at the moment. And so a lot of women have found themselves at the forefront as being providers of the home.
Right.
Now, I don't believe there's anything wrong with that, and I personally don't. There's nothing in the Bible that says a man must be the provider. It just says a man should love his wife, a woman should respect her husband. I believe God can provide through anybody, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, and just because the woman, it comes through her, doesn't mean she's the head. There's hierarchy. However, a lot of women don't understand this, and society makes it seem like if a man is not at that moment bringing in money, then there's something wrong with him, he's lazy and immoral. So a lot of women are thoughts. I don't know if that has happened in your marriage, where there was a season where Funto was bringing in the money, and was there any pressure? How did you handle that? Gaze, if that was the situation, did it affect you? Because a lot of men too are in that situation. They feel maybe ego. Women may not have the grace to respect. Has that ever happened? And can you guys talk about
The
it?
question is not if there was a season. The question should be, have there been seasons? No. And it's really, I really like the angle that you're bringing it from, because really and truly, most women, especially women in our generation, would not understand the fact that your husband is really not your provider, is not Jehovah Jireh, right? God is your source. And having that mindset, I think for me, was a few months into our marriage where I attended this event by Mrs. Awoshika, and I heard her say this, that, when God looks at the family unit, he sees only one, and it doesn't matter which half of the one he blesses the family from, right? So that gave me a lot of, context, right? Because when I met my husband, I was also 24 when I got married. When I met my husband, I was earning 3 times more than he was earning. I remember, our wedding was funded by ourselves, our first 2 years rent, you know, it was from me, you know, and then kids came. So I was really handling a lot of the family finances. Were there times when I felt overwhelmed? Yes. But having that understanding, and I remember one time literally God said to me, Funto, your husband is not your source, I am. You know, so that already gave me perspective early. There are times when I cried, yes, there are times when I'm like, oh, this is hard for me. And there are times when, you know, I'll have a conversation with my husband and he's, thank you for doing this, just gave me the energy and the drive to continue, right? So yes, there have been so many seasons like that, you know, where I've been the one to handle most of the, you know, family finances, whether it's rent, school fees, whatever it is. But it hasn't been like, oh, I never had this mindset where I'm like, I'm not the one who's supposed to handle it, it's you, I'm doing this for you. Because at the end of the day, I understand that this is a sacrifice I need to make for the greater good of my family, right? And when I see the bigger picture of where we're going to, I mean, that also gives me hope that, oh, even though I know that I'm still going to leave my baby girl, like, I also want to take lavish, you know, vacations to the Maldives, all right? But I know that this is just a season, and then there will be a time when we would overcome this. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Baba.
Same question.
Well, so for you, how was it? Because I believe you're making such huge impact, and you've done it for so long. So see, there's a difference between a man that's hardworking and making good impact, and a man that's just lazy. There are men like that. So some women struggle with that. But for someone like you, that you know that you're hardworking, you have a vision, you've heard prophetic words, things, but then you hadn't still been where you would want to be. How was that? Was it tough for you? You know, I don't really know what the question is, but I would like to know from a man's perspective.
I don't know if I have a man's perspective. Or maybe I say I don't think I have the average man's perspective.
Right.
Right? For different reasons. One, so I remember I was in uni, and the girl who I was, one of the girls who were kind of like closest to me, she liked me, or there was I think I needed to do something, so I took a loan from her. It wasn't like dash, it was like a loan. And there's a friend of hers who we got talking, and she was like, you accepted money from, to call her name. I was like, yeah, I need to solve something. She said, how? I was like, how do you mean how? She said, you should never like be comfortable with
Borrowing from a chick.
whether it's borrow or
Taking money from you.
And I processed it. I think God has blessed me with the. I jump a lot on stage. I'm very active and all of that. But you know, when I'm like me by myself, I'm very introspective. Like I think. So I try to track that thoughts and all that. So I wanted to understand why was it comfortable for me to do that, and what informed it. And I realized that it came from my upbringing, my family. So my dad, I'm the seventh child of my parents.
Wow.
I'm the only boy.
How
I'm the
bad.
seventh of seven.
It was not
I'm the only boy. My parents, so for the children, the way we say it, there are 3 generations inside the children. There's the generation. My elder sister was born in 1969.
my mom's age.
Which is her mom's age.
Oh wow. Thank you.
I
I like my husband.
My elder sister was in year 1, 17 years old when I was born.
Wow.
So when she comes to visit me in secondary school, my mom has come. The day my mom finally came to my secondary school, my SS3, my friends were asking me if that was my grandmother. No joke.
Yes.
Right? Now, you see those 3 generations. First 3, then the 2, then last 3. The first 3, my dad was director of administration of Obafemi Awolowo University Teaching Hospitals Complex. Had 2 drivers, 2 official cars. They lived the life.
The next generation, he had retired. He then started law, practicing law in Lagos. My mom was principal school of nursing. The final generation, I walked home from school. Right? I played out. I had fun, right? But I never experienced driver driving me to school. The first generation, those first three, my parents don't take them to school. The driver takes them to school, goes to pick them from school. I can't relate. Right? Now, when I was growing up, not like when you're like 2 or 3, when I became like conscious, my dad was retired, but was working in law. My mom was then serving with the United Nations, so she would do programs outside, 2 years, 1 year, and come back home. So she would earn and send home, right? And I was conscious enough to understand how they made that work. So I grew up, first of all, realizing, or I grew up with a, how do I put it, financially strong mother. My eldest sisters, it was not like that. It was my dad at that time. When I was now like maybe teenager or almost teenager, it was my mom majorly, right? That was the first. When we got married, before we got married, I wasn't earning. I had an allowance on the deal I had. It was 30 grand. So all I wanted, my big brother was earning 1 million more. Like, yo, yeah, boy. It was 30 grand because the arrangement we had was we're going to put the money on the music. We're not going to do money to buy Lexus, rent house in Lekki and all of that, because you pay all that money back as an artist. Even the splash money, you pay it back. So let's not put any pressure on ourselves as individuals. Let's just put the money on the music, and we did that. But keep yourself together. So it's 30 grand. She was anyway 150. It wasn't 3 times, it was 5 times. Right? But another thing was, I told her, like, the first day I was in her house, I told her, see, forget all this trend on Twitter, all this. You are not fun. So I like, this is where I am, this is what it is, this is what is on ground.
Everything.
Right? But okay, so there's that. Then we got married. Started like that. After a while, there was a period when it shifted. When I was music director somewhere, she had resigned. So there was that period as well. So we had all of that. But there was, what I wanted to share was, one of my mentors, Olakunle Shoreyan, I was with him, and he could tell that I was feeling it, because it was a period when she was bearing more of the burden of the, I don't know how to call them burden, like responsibility, and he could feel that. So he told me that thing she shared with me. I don't know if Mr. Awushka shared it, because it might be me that shared with her. But so people was like, this. Do you know that scripture where the Bible says, any man that does not provide for his family is worse than an infidel? Do you know that he was not talking to husbands for the family? That he was not in the context of marriage.
Yeah.
I was like, He said he was talking about widows. He was talking about widows, and he was saying widows, the family should take care of widows.
Oh, wow.
The widows that the church should take care of are widows that do not have family to take care of them. If the widow still has a family, the family should take care of the widow. Because anyone who does not take care of his own is worse than an infidel. So he wasn't talking about the system of marriage. He was talking of family taking care of a woman who has lost her husband.
Wow.
And he told me, he said, show you scripture in Yoruba. PK talks to me a lot in Yoruba. I'll translate, or let me just go straight English.
Speak it.
So, he said, show you scripture in. Family is the church to be destroyed.
Literally.
Which is,
the
we
family
have taken that scripture out of context and broken men with it.
Yeah.
Right? So he explained that to me and told me, he said, when the Bible says, and the man shall leave his
Inheritance.
father and mother
Okay.
and cleave to his wife, and the two of them shall become, he waited for me to complete it. I said one. He said, no, it's not one, it's one flesh. It doesn't say the two of them shall become one. It says the two of them shall become one flesh. And it says, let me tell you the difference between one and one flesh. One talks of unity. People are united. That's not what the Bible says. One flesh talks of a single entity.
Yeah.
It's not that you are two people who are united. You have become, it's not two people who are united. It's one entity. So when God looks from heaven, he doesn't see two people. He sees one entity, which is why he hates divorce. Because you are not separating two people. You are literally breaking an entity. You cannot have any of them whole again.
Oh wow, powerful.
Right? So it says he sees that entity and then he sends provision to that entity. It does not matter which
Part
side
the entity.
it's coming from, right? And he told me you have to be self-assured and enough in yourself, understand your role, for her to be secure in you, even if she's earning more at any point in time. If you're secure in yourself and you understand that even if at this point in time you are earning more or provision is coming more to this home through you, and you are not harassed, you are not, threatened by that, it's easier for you to stay in your place and give the guidance that the home needs, because at the end of the day you still have to give that guidance. Right? So those two things, my upbringing or part of what I'd seen growing up, and also that I can't forget that it was maybe 2 hours with him. He shared that with me, so that kind of,
your identity was secure.
Yes. There was something I also heard Fela to share. It was before I got married. We were talking about when the wife is a power woman, she's doing great things, all of that. And he said, your vision has to be big enough to not be threatened by hers. So the reason why people be like, man, you have a powerful woman, all of that, I'm like, two things that helps me. One, I need her to fly as high as she can. On one side, I'm like, she will go flight here.
I'm the one that's powering it.
Aside that, right? I said, what's her name?
What's her name? It's Yes.
She's still coming back to
So
this
that name that is flying, that's the name.
Yeah.
So why will I hinder that flight? I should
it.
power
I hinder
that
myself.
flight.
Power it. I love
I
it.
love it.
So that's
Thank you.
one. Two,
Wait, I have to.
with all that, there is no, because in myself and what I know I'm doing or gonna achieve on this earth, I've seen it. The world might not have seen it,
But you have
but
to.
I have seen it. Because I have seen it, I'm not threatened by a vision that is manifesting quicker.
Oh, I love that.
Do you understand what I mean? It's not, you should not be threatened. I'm gonna arrive.
And you are still with me.
Thank you. I love it.
Fantastic.
Oh gosh, I'm obsessed with my people today because we planned it. I know why I said we wanted to do 1.5 hours because this was supposed to be. But let me go to the Abolarians. You have been waiting. Can you hear me? Hi, you can both hear me. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Thank
Yeah,
you. We're doing
Good
well.
morning. In fact, I think we need one panel session with each couple alone. But I'm going to get right into it. Mr. Alushola, has already touched on the whole concept of financial infidelity. But his wasn't even financial. He wasn't trying to hide it from his wife. It was just something that he had to make, even as an investment banker, I understand. It's a spot on, investment decision, right? But unfortunately, in the times that we live in, we heard of the Hakimi guy, right? That his wife was divorcing him. Everything was in his mom's name, and everybody was like hailing the guy. In fact, I'm sure many guys have gone to do that thing now. And I remember and not all just the men, even on the flip side, I remember watching this movie, Crazy Rich Asians, and she was always hiding her shopping bags from her husband because she came from a very wealthy family, and her husband was like, up and coming, so she was always hiding it. And unfortunately, even in society, in Nigerian society, you hear of situations where a woman is getting married, they say, his money is you both of his money, but your money is your money. Don't tell your husband how much you are earning. And for some husbands, I've had a situation where a man was in coma and they couldn't, and a very wealthy guy, but because they didn't have access to his accounts, they couldn't pay his medical bill. So financial infidelity is, it's a thing from the past and in this generation. Why? I mean, I feel like it's the same thing as if you can keep and hide things. I mean, there was even another situation where I heard of a woman that her husband was paying rent in their house.
Yes,
in her own house, and he didn't know it was her house. So why? Because it's trust. So if you can do that, you can cheat. It's the same thing. What do you think about it? And is it something? I don't even know. I have a question, but I'm just, really upset about this because it happens a lot. And sometimes it's not intentional. It could be that you're having a tough financial season and maybe you just had one small break and you just want to buy a parfait. And you just don't want your husband to say you're splurging. So you quickly eat the parfait inside the car. I'm talking to myself. And you throw the package in the dustbin. We have this doorbell in the house, those American doorbells that you can see outside. So I saw you inside the bin. But why is it that people feel like they need to hide? And there's no point in getting married, right? And what do people need to do to make sure they can trust each other, to share everything with each other?
Chelsea, do you want to go?
Yeah, let me start first. First of all, I want to say, I feel like I'm really learning a lot from the panels. I was just taking notes, and so bless you guys for your immense wisdom. So to answer the question, I think it starts from understanding the fundamentals of marriage, or why are you going into marriage. I think Gaze said it clearly, that when you are going into marriage, you go into marriage with understanding that I am going to become one with this individual. So for us in our case, I remember when we started dating, she earned more than me. And there was this day when I felt like I was really, really liking this girl. She has never been to my apartment. So I called her. I said, Ayo, can you do me a favor? I said, what's it? I said, can you come to my house? I said, why? I want you to come and understand me. I want you to come and see what you are getting into. Because I know a big girl. You drive your own car. I don't have a car. I jump bus. So I invited her to my house. And in my house then, that was in 2018 or 2019, 2018. I invited her. It's a shared apartment. If you know Skyfield in Yaba, that's where I was staying. And in that apartment, I have a roommate, no kitchen. Those hostel beds, it's just one. And I said, this is where I stay. This is who I am. I really like you, and I would love to be in a relationship with you. So do you want to continue?
Wow.
Do you want to continue? No. It's not about money. It's not about this. Don't worry. So that was how we started. So I started with transparency. You know, I told her I was earning 50,000 naira then. And I said, you know, this is where I am now, but this is not where I am going.
Oh,
so,
I love it.
In fact, my friend used to tell me that I will still crack that joke. I invited him to this program, and he was like, man, Ayo is what they call buy low, sell high.
Oh my God.
Buy low, sell
Oh my
high.
God.
You know, so I was earning 50,000 naira there. So this is me. So if you invite me to all these fancy dates, you know, I might not come. You know, this is why I didn't have a car. And so we started our relationship on transparency. And 3 months later, I think after we met, I proposed to her. And after I proposed to her, the next thing I did, we took a course together. It's called the Life Book course. So both of us sort of dreamt. We call it a dreaming session where we look at different areas of our life, and we dreamt of, how would you like to live? You know, where would you like to have us go on holidays? Where would you like our kids to go? You know, we defined everything. How much would you like to earn, etc. After we defined that, then, you know, we started working together again, because our goals have become one now. Because now I understand, she understands where I want to go as an individual. I understand the type of life she wants to live. So in all our goals, in all our planning, there was never a point where I would say, I'm hiding one month. Like, why would I? You know, so for us, so I can understand why, you know, it's rampant in this society, or even in developed society, where they'll say if I divorce, or if you divorce, you are going to take 50% of your property, etc. Or if you have a solid understanding of marriage, you have solid fundamental on Christianity, and you know what your vows mean as an individual, then you understand that, you know, your properties, your wealth becomes one for both of you. So for us, that's how we've been doing it. We plan everything together as one. She knows where I would like to be the next 10 years. She knows the type of things I like to do. She knows, you know, the big dreams I have, and I know us too. And we also understand different times. So for example, one thing I do that everybody knows about me, I invest in cryptocurrency, and I trade and all those things. And I'm also that type of individual where you call Toyosi and Toyosi, let us go to the bush. You know, there is money. Next night says, now let's go. You know, how do you go there?
Holidays.
So the kind of wife that God has blessed me with, she's not that type of person. Before, she will ask 1,000,001 questions, like why? Why are you going to the bush? You know, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? So it's also understanding, and that's that balance that God has blessed us with. That Toyosi is a risk taker. You know, Ayo is probably doesn't take as much risk as Toyosi. Understanding that balance, and both of us are able to talk things through. So I don't make financial decisions without her, and she doesn't, you know, without me. And the moment you do, you know, you're already indebted to the other person. You know, why would you go and spend, you know, X amount of money on a bag or on a shoe? You know, when you understand the realities of the country, realities of the economy, and even our own financial reality, and also our own, you know, financial dreams. So that's how I think, you know, we have been able to approach, you know, approaching finance together. Just to recap, it starts with transparency, starts with trust, starts with understanding, you know, God in your marriage, and understanding that both of you have one goal. You know, both of you, our success is your success. Your success, you know, is our success, and both of you constantly working towards it. So yeah, everything I have is ours. You know, it's super playing to each other, and we are super open on that.
I love it. I love the transparency. I love it. Ayo.
I think Toyosi has basically said it all. But I think one thing that I would just add as to maybe like a possible reason why we're seeing a lot of, you know, financial infidelity is because people are not having conversations about finances before they get married. So, when you get married to someone, you're like also excited about the person, you're thinking about love and the wedding and the dress you're going to wear. But, you don't look at the person's financial habits, and you don't, have conversations to understand if you guys are financially compatible as well. So then you get into the marriage and you realize that this is a very secretive person when it comes to finances, or we didn't discuss finances, or, you can see it and you're finding out while you're already in the marriage. So I think that could be one of the reasons as well. And I think that's something that people need to discuss more before they get married.
Okay, so just one last question for both of you. So would you do joint accounts? Is this something you would both do? What do you believe in the whole joint account concept, or you don't think is necessary? I remember. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, so I think that it's very important for you to understand your family dynamics and what works for your family. For us personally, we don't have joint accounts, but however, we save our money in, accounts together. We have different accounts for different purposes. Let me put it like that. And I'm in charge of some accounts, and he's in charge of some accounts, and that's where trust comes in as well. I just think personally we haven't had a need to have a joint account, but I don't really see anything wrong with having a joint account. If it works for you, if it's necessary for your family, maybe you guys have an account where you guys spend expenses from, and you don't want to touch your savings, and it's easier for you to be more disciplined with a joint account, then yes, why not? By all means. I think if that's how your family dynamic works, I think yes, why not?
Okay, so I just want to, this is just a fun question. So Ayo, when you first went to the apartment, were you afraid?
To be very honest, I was a little taken aback because it was one of those beds where it was like two small mattresses, then in the middle, if you don't position yourself well, the wood would just choke you in the bum. But he said something to me that day, and he said, this is the lowest you will ever see me. And I saw beyond what was in the physical at that moment. I saw somebody who was honest, and somebody who was kind-hearted, who was driven. So I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit like, okay, but I could see beyond that to the type of person that he was, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. So
oh, bless. I love it. Well done. And it's so funny because looking at your content on social media, even obviously you do your content in your house, you can see that God has been good, right? God has been good. Yes. So well done. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go to the Olusholas now. I think they are sending me messages that they are going to give me some more time. So I think they're enjoying the conversation. But so a lot of people now are going through
same situation.
Yes. So how can they weather the storm?
I think Toyosi, right? Said, as life coaches, one of the key things that we did through research and
so practical tips.
Yes, practical tips is one of the leading stuff that is leading to divorce, especially among Christian couples, like never before. It's just exactly what she said. People, I think it was, or maybe it was Funto that said that we don't talk about finances when we're about to get married, and it's transparency.
So why is that? Is it fear?
No, it's the belief system. I think Gaze was able to point on that. We grew up in an environment and we don't pay attention. I think that's what coaching does, and that's why we try to, as much as balance in our coaching company, the blend between scriptures and science. We are not too far apart from one, because God is one, is in science, and of course, So the truth is, a lot of people don't face reality because we grew up in a wrong belief system about marriage. And that's what Grace has been able to say. Grace came from a belief system that is okay for my mom to drop money because my dad is not threatened. But you grew up in an environment whereby your dad was the king, the lion of the Odogu of the house. Nobody knows anything. I can't make my dad, we never, like my son will come down and touch my husband's bed and touch his head. I can't even imagine seeing my dad. I didn't even see my dad. How much I want to even touch his bird. So the belief system, the environment, the things that have formed our mind system about marriage is faulty. So when you say people hide their stuff, they grew up in an environment where maybe they grew up with a single mother, or they grew up in an environment where the mother was not, your father, don't tell him that I did anything, or that kind of thing. And there's nobody that's corrected that, irrespective of their belief, whether they are Christian, Muslim. The truth is that belief system, whether they are conscious of it or not, is ruling their lives. So the truth of it is that how do we, transparency. Thank you so much. They said that openness. One thing my husband calls me these days, as things begin to progress and things get better in our finances, he always says, Mrs. Spending. You love life to spend money. I really love to enjoy my life. So when we made, because we work together, we are open with the finances. I'm more like the face of the business, but my husband is the silent strategist and talks about it. But the truth of it is that my husband is very meticulous. So he can give you his ATM card and say, go do this. Like yesterday, I needed to buy something, and I was like, "Oh, can you offer?" I was like, "Of course," and give me the money. And the truth of it is transparency. Like you said, we are not two people that come. We have sellotape into one person. So we have to open up. In our own family, for example, we have a joint account based on the fact that we work together. And so as they pay us, so the debit already goes to our joint accounts to save and invest for the children and our legacy. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't work for some people. But I have access. If I like, go and use all your money to eat Burger King, and that's your business. It's your portion. You can do whatever you have. But there's a portion of our money that must be set apart for investment so that we are safe. There are no shocks. Because we've been there. There are shocks that have happened to us. So we know, you don't need anybody to tell us. So for me, practical tips, be open. Now, that's the Bible even says, if the foundations be destroyed in your marriage, what can you do? So you have to go back to the foundations to rebuild. This is it. Even if you are owing 1 billion, sit down with your husband and say, see, I am owing money. I'm in basic right now. So we need to stop all this wig that you are buying. Hold it first.
And I love, and that's, and one thing I want to even commend both of you is, Ms. Alushola, a lot of men will not feel comfortable coming to tell their wives. Some, the wives will never know. Some will just, but you felt you must have had an intimate relationship that you thought you could be open with her and say, babe, things are tough,
Yeah, and basically because I understand the proper definition of an alpha male. When people talk about an alpha male, it's somebody that is not vulnerable. But I studied the Bible a lot. And I noticed from the Bible that David was an alpha male. And an alpha male, from the lenses of scripture, is somebody who is vulnerable before God. Nothing to hide. You know why? Vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a strength. It's a strength. And I learned that very, very early in my life. And when problems happen in my financial problems, one of the first things, apart from transparency, you have to readjust your expectations. Yeah. A lot of people, when they have financial challenges, they think that adjusting financial expectations, cutting down on some things, is a lack of faith. No, it's not a lack of faith. It is wisdom. You are only doing it for the time being on the way to where you are going. Things won't be like that, but you have to face reality. And then you begin that journey. And then the only competition I have in marriage is my own marriage. I'm not competing with Funto and Gaze. I'm not competing with you and Benga. It is just us. So if I now say, because I don't want them to know I have financial challenges, he buys a Rolls Royce, which obviously I can't afford. Amen. And amen. And then you understand? And then I go and buy the same things because I don't want people to know, with a debt. So what will eventually happen is that when we need to feed, cut part of the tire, let's cook that one for dinner and eat it. You understand? So we must realize that we are not competing with people. We are not living a social media marriage. We are only living our own marriage on the way to where we are going. So she wanted to buy something yesterday. Chanel. It was quite expensive. And she just told me, We were together, and I just gave her my card.
Was
But-
it Rolls Royce?
No, it wasn't a Rolls Royce.
Not yet.
But you know, it took me down memory lane. That number one, if it was before, she would not even have that idea of buying that thing. Or it will become a prayer point. That shows how far
You have
we've
come.
come from where we are now, on the way to where we are going. And number four, the Lord is my source. I have everything I need. My coaching practice, my pastoring is not my source.
Yes, sir.
God is my source. My salary, my income is not my source. God is my source. And you know, once you come to that reality, you enter rest.
Yes, sir.
I'm not bothered about anything. We don't do adverts, but the jobs keep coming. You know why? Because God is the source. You know, let me just say one more thing. The birds of the air, they do not, you know, they don't have bands. They don't have savings accounts. Yet,
Well, take
they are fed. If you know how to speak the languages of birds, if you go and find out, they've been fed today. Who fed them? He did. So if he can prioritize birds that are worth nothing, that he didn't shed his blood for, how much for us? So that's what has brought us into a place of rest.
But you should
Wow.
still invest.
Because there's wisdom in those.
So we need to always balance that, you know, because majority of the clients that we have are Christians that have refused to leave their old belief system. They are stuck in what somebody said, a voice they heard that was wrong. And that's what Gaze Baba pointed out. I was going to point out that. And we must come out from that and begin to, the world is fast growing. Today there's AI, you must not stay in belief systems that are no more working for this generation. You must begin, if nothing showed you the sign that there's something, COVID did, God said, okay, come my year, shut down the world. Do you understand? So there were the positive things that in terms of finances, your father or your mother must have done it. Did it work for them? Maybe you know, what are you doing the same thing for? So we must all come to that place, and especially when we're talking about marriage and family life these days, we see and hear so much, and we always say, you know what? This belief system we are carrying cannot work for you. It's your father's belief. What is your own belief system? What are you going to leave for your children? And yes, that's it.
Amazing. Gosh, ask questions. Okay, so I think we have room for one more question. I'm going to ask the Abiris. So, I mean, thankfully, I'm so happy that I feel like we're in the presence of like minds, right? And as you said, what PK said, Gaze, that a lot of marriages have broken because of this thing. My marriage would have broken because of this thing that I didn't understand. You know, this limiting belief that a man must be, you know, a woman cannot be the provider, and then you look down right on the man. Now, but interestingly, Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook Meta, her book Lean In, she actually talks about how obviously I think they practice Judaism, and she talks about how even statistics show that the most important person in the family, even in raising the children, is the father, not the mother. So for her, she was very okay being at the forefront as the CEO of Facebook because her husband was able to help her, you know, at the home. So clearly, as Christians, we've made it seem like money determines hierarchy. No, money doesn't. So for a woman that's watching, right, how does she ensure that, you know, that has a lot of money, that she still respects her husband? Second, and you know, it's 2-in-1 question, is what was it that was different? So how did you know that, okay, this was just a season, my husband is going somewhere, as opposed to a woman where, because there are some men that are just lazy and they just want to take advantage of a woman, and it's not a function of season. This is going to be your reality, you know. And even if it's your reality, it's different when you understand his role in the home, you know, or supporting you. But when he just wants to be lounging and you're suffering, he's not even helping with the children, what does she do? How does she know that, okay, this is a man with a vision, this is how we're going to be, and a man that you just have to think about it and say, okay, this is not what I want?
I love it, which is why, I'm going to start from the second question and just say that it's so important that, especially as singles, that you don't just rush into marriage and just, marry anyone. That's really the foundation. When I met my husband, even though I was earning, more than him, I saw in him someone who had a vision. I remember the first time I told my mom that I wanted to, I was going to marry him. So she asked me, so what does he do? I said, he sings. Where does he sing? Like, what job exactly is he doing? I'm just like, he just sings. That's his calling in life. But she could not understand it, And I remember in that season, we actually tried to, let him get a real job. Well, it just was like, it didn't even work because it was just like a fish that will be out of water. So I understood that, first off, this guy knew God. Two, he understood his calling in life and he was hard after it. And I just said to myself that really, if someone can be following God like this, it's just a matter of time. Right. It's just a matter of time. Literally, Elijah level. It's time. And my husband was not lazy. He wasn't lazy in terms of his work. He wasn't lazy in terms of his calling. He was putting his heart and, mind to it, right? And just understanding that. So when it comes to home and domestic, my husband is like I said, is the last born. They always, when he was growing up, they always make him, wash all the plates, and also it's something that he did not like or he doesn't like. So I also understood that. So we had a conversation and I knew, okay, you don't like washing plates and doing housework, right? Okay, we need to get a help. Right. So just understanding, what works for that situation. Yes. So that is to answer the second question, that really just understand that, this person is not lazy. I don't know when it will end, but I know that as long as this person continues on this path, it's just really a matter of time, and just really also understanding process. Life is in process. And I always like to say that, on your journey to purpose, pain is part of it. Sacrifice is part of it. So are you going to run away at the slightest, sight of pain? You have to embrace your process, embrace your journey so you come out properly cooked, right? So the first question, which is, on respect.
And I like when you say, I like you to just finish up and say, how can a woman, because a man is sensitive. So you had PK, but not everyone has PK. Yeah. How can a woman just make sure that she doesn't, disrespect her husband in the process?
So I think, to be honest, initially for me, it was a little bit tough. So, I came into marriage with those shoulder pads, I'm the one bringing the money here, all of that. And, God is just merciful and God is just a master planner, right? So you saw that, obviously, and you knew that this girl, if I don't clip her shoulder pads. So it took us into a season where I was earning nothing and my husband was earning everything. Like, even to buy groundnut, I had to ask him, for money. So that season, really did a lot of recalibrating in my mind, right? And I remember we've had conversations, maybe like 2, 3, 4 years into our marriage, where my husband felt like maybe something I said or the way I said it was disrespectful. Meanwhile, I'm like, I beg. Do you understand? So understanding what is respect to him. So one of the things that the Holy Spirit has taught me and is still teaching me is how to love my own husband, how to respect my own. So yes, it's general, women respect your husband and all of that, but there's a way my husband needs to be respected. And if I do not understand that, I will feel like I'm respecting him. Meanwhile, I'm doing the complete opposite. So it had to take me through a season of really understanding, okay, this is how my husband wants me to respect him. These are the things that he needs me to say or do. We have those conversations. So it boils down to open communication. Yeah.
Yes, Baba.
Yeah, I want to chip in. For me, it's when you are single, man.
When you're single.
For me, I feel like there's a like a basic level of sense.
Of sense, okay.
That whether you are man or woman, that one should have, right? Then be teachable. That's how that your level will be growing as you are proceeding in life. All right. Yes, I have PK. She has people, but Proverbs says that give knowledge to the wise and you become even wiser. But there's nothing you want to tell a fool. You can't receive that wisdom. So even to receive wisdom it takes wisdom to recognize and receive wisdom. If you listen to conversations today on Twitter, you realize people don't even have
foolishness.
the depth of
The fundamentals.
it's like you can't receive wisdom like this if this is where you are. You understand what I mean? So that's it for me. My teachable, right? We have grown, both of us. We are not where we were when we started. We had some level of wisdom when we started, but we have grown over the years. You know, so how would a woman, like, when you're single, like when you're deciding who you are marrying, you see what Ayo said about Toyosi? It takes someone with understanding to recognize beyond the surface and see that this person will guide me. This person will steward my life well. If you understand what I mean. So, I mean, I know that time is up. And all, but I mean, that's what it is. That's why she can go to that room with the bed that is shifting. But when you hear what is coming out from the mouth of a person, you know what's going on in the heart. And then that's why she too will say, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. It's not only that it's following God. You have heard what's coming out from this person's mouth
as well.
Any man make it.
Yeah, we are seeing the Elijah levels. Thank you all so much.
Amazing.
Stay tuned. We have one more panel before we end the Ritual Woman Festival. Amazing set of couples as well, and a surprise guest, my husband. So just stay tuned. Thank you very much, and get people to watch. Yeah, it's not surprising again. I said it. Thank you very much.